my question is she a sleeper agent because of a mind meld, or a sleeper agent because she saw something so horrifying that she has to stop it no matter what? And that's the question.
I don't think she's a sleeper agent. She found out something that made her think that this is something she had to do. She was compelled to do.
Well, that's what I mean. When I say a sleeper agent, I don't necessarily mean.
Whoa, folks, one at a time.
I think
Justin,
we know what.
Then Justin,
I think
then Ross, then
she
Shawn.
was compelled via a mind meld by O, which is going to be
nope, totally wrong. No mind meld.
Oh,
Ross,
literally.
what do you
I think we know what the sunglasses were for. The sunglasses showed her what O wanted her to see that convinced her of their cause.
You mean they were hollow projectors? They were hollow projectors?
Yeah,
something like that. Okay.
No,
I buy that.
Like,
I don't buy the mind belt. That's.
I got it. It was
authentic.
Roddy Piper. It was Roddy Piper's sunglasses, and they live. She put them on her face and said, "Now take a look. This is the shit you're gonna get." And that was too much.
I have no idea what you're talking about.
You've never seen They Live?
No. Is it a horror movie?
Oh my God, it's a great movie.
Oh,
that's why I haven't seen it. I hate horror movies.
It's more of a sci-fi movie.
Were you gonna say something?
Horror movie.
I think I just heard a very convincing argument for the Google Glass because I think she was shown something in some way.
For sure, she literally said that.
She was shown something. I wish they didn't show me. I wish you could see what I saw.
Yeah, I wrote down her lines. I wish you knew what I knew. I wish I didn't know what I knew. I wish they hadn't shown me. So it brings up a couple of interesting questions. One, what is it she was shown? And two, who's the they? We're assuming it's O, but it could be bigger than that.
It is
bigger than that. Yeah, it's chocolate. It's got to be the Romulan
Conclave of 8.
I would.
O is on that conclave.
So is Clancy.
I would like to posit a melding of both. She was shown through mind meld, and partially given some knowledge of how to be an agent. Otherwise, how the hell did she end up in Picard's chateau with a Romulan phaser rifle in the first place?
Yeah, I mean that's
shot and killed him.
Exactly. I mean, mind meld's gotta be a possible thing.
Presumably, it was one that was left on the ground when somebody, when Laris or one of the the others shot.
How did she know
outside? Because
now I have a theory about this. Okay, I have a theory about this now. We've already established there are multiple agendas here at play, and I think that the Jacques Vache, is that what they are? Okay. Mm-hmm. Their agenda is not the same agenda as whatever O's agenda is. Okay. And O's immediate agenda, I think, was to find Maddox and kill Maddox. And that's why Girardi, instead of going to kill Picard, Girardi was sent there as a plant to track Maddox down and kill Maddox. That's my theory on this. Because Jacques Vache was just going to kill everybody in the room in that scene at Picard's chateau, and that is not what O wanted. So that's why Girardi's there. Girardi wound up there.
Okay. Well, do you want to posit that into an actual prediction?
Not really. Just it's more looking back and seeing it. So
okay.
I do have one question for everybody before we get into the SmackDown. Will Girardi get away with it?
Yeah, there's no reason why she should. I mean, this is the thing that bugs me. Is like, unless we see a scene where she goes in and deletes all the logs, but then how's she gonna do that without somebody noticing that? It's a starship. It's got sensors all over the place. They've got an EMH that was just shut off for no damn reason.
Yeah.
She's left a trail. I mean, she's basically standing there with a bloody knife.
Yeah, and also we do see her getting a mind meld later on, I guess, in one of the trailers that they actually showed her getting a mind meld.
Oh,
so we know that happens. We know it happens, but we don't know if it's before or after this incident.
Yeah,
I must
good
not have
question. We'll
seen
keep
that
our
trailer.
Yeah, it is in a trailer. It's a close up of the, the fingers on the face kind of a thing. All right, so that's where the episode wraps up. In the scenes from next week's episode, lots going on, obviously. But we actually did see the La Serena show up at the artifact. Picard is on the artifact playing with the Rubik's Cube with a little Statue of Liberty that comes up out of it or something. But we also see a shot of Picard as Locutus. Quick shot.
I don't think that's Locutus.
That is not Locutus.
Then what?
That's one of the Borg that's on the cube.
Yeah.
That's
that
one of the
Picard,
Borg that's
dude.
in hibernation. The face is all wrong. The implants are all wrong. Everything about that Borg is not Locutus. I've been smacking this down all
that looks like Picard.
Week.
That's not Picard.
That's not Picard. It's a bald Borg.
Those are Romulan eyebrows, if I've ever seen Romulan eyebrows, right there.
Okay, I hope so, because I'd hate for it to be Locutus. All right, so let's move into the Picard prediction SmackDown. We'll go over briefly our existing
SmackDown hammer is ready.
Predictions. SmackDown hammer is ready. Thank you for having that on hand. And we'll try to cut some out this week, so we don't have to keep revisiting ones that have been properly smacked down either by us or by eventualities demonstrated on the show. Okay, so number one is, I think still active, which is Shawn's prediction that Narek and Rizzo are Game of Thrones lovers. I think the jury's still out on it. What do other people think?
Hard to say, considering they weren't in this episode at all. Thank God.
Yeah.
We needed a break.
Yeah, a lot of people really having negative reactions to a lot of what's going on the artifact, but I think that'll change starting next episode.
Yeah,
I'm hoping.
Okay, so no real change on that one, it sounds like. We'll next go to Joe's prediction that Maddox created Dodge from a bit of data that survived Nemesis. I have that listed as no evidence. And I think as far as we've seen, there's still no evidence. There was that interesting reference that Maddox made to Girardi when he said, Sung and I did it, and we couldn't have done it without your contribution. We don't know what that means. And I'm wondering if that's possibly genetic. Like maybe some of them is part of her too. But she described it as yet another thing I have to atone for, which I thought was interesting.
Could there be a possible another Soon running around, maybe a program?
Oh, Sung Schmung, you keep living in the past, Justin.
Hey, I've been writing about a couple things already.
Future.
So, hey, he's mentioned Soon, not me. He's the one that said it. Soon and him did it. Why would he talk about Soon as if it was...
Well, it's not like he worked with Soon. He's basically saying that he was able to do the same thing that Soon did.
I know
Soon
that
and I did it. Soon and I did it.
I know that we're in the prediction phase, but I would like to point out the pride he had in making Dodge and Soji that he conveys to Girardi by saying perfectly imperfect, which goes back to the replicator cookies.
Yeah.
Explain.
He doesn't like the replicator's cookies. He likes to make them from the ingredients. And when you make cookies by hand, they're never uniform and perfect, are they?
Good point.
That's an excellent point. They're perfectly imperfect, and it takes a bit of alchemy.
And what do you think is the bigger implication, though? What does that mean about Soji and Dodge?
Well, from what we have from oh good God, y'all just said his name like 4 times and I forget it.
Sung.
Sung, thank you. Sung. From what we have of Sung was always trying to strive for the imperfections. Random eye blinking for data, the aging of the skin, the how it looks, how it feels, all this stuff, it changes as a person grows.
Laura's twitch.
And here is Maddox having finally perfected imperfection.
Well put. Okay, so as far as Joe's prediction is concerned, we still don't have any actual evidence of that very thing, but I think we're getting closer to understanding exactly what the mechanics of building Soji and Dodge was. So we'll keep our eyes open for that. Next was that this was Justin's about Dodge coming from Lore's neurons and B4's body. I still have it as wishful thinking, possibly even fan wank, because we've seen no evidence of that so far. I know you're obsessed with lore, dude, but I don't think there's any lore to be seen here.
Yeah.
Okay,
just the story lore.
Yeah, exactly. Next is Shawn's prediction that Maddox had enough of data to try to reconstruct him. I have that listed as possible. I think that's still the case, unless anyone has any SmackDown to offer on that note. Anybody?
Nope.
Really?
Okay.
No, I think that's still possible as much as anything, but, we'll have to see. I really think the Borg might be involved in this now.
That
Yeah, so the Borg are more involved in their Dodge's creation than we were led to believe.
Well, I think maybe Borg technology was, but I don't think the Borg themselves were.
Oh, no, but the technology was definitely involved. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so Ross's prediction, or really more of an observation, I guess, that around more political intrigue between Romulans and Federation regarding AI, we're definitely seeing more indications of that based on what Maddox revealed. Yeah, well, it's still
right.
It's still going on. I think I had it listed as originally as less likely, not seeing much of Starfleet anymore, but that I think has been obviated by what we learned from Maddox. So I think we're seeing an uptick for you on that one, Ross, and I'll update it accordingly. Now one we can definitively smack down, and I think we did definitively smack down, was the Zhaban and Laris will betray Picard.
Yeah.
Unless you're really, unless you're really wanting to stick by that one.
Look,
kill it with fire.
You can kill it. I still think it's a possibility. You can kill it.
Yeah, it's a little early to kill it.
Anything's a possibility, but there's just nothing.
I think you got a better chance of Riker. I think you got a better chance of Riker and Troy betraying Picard than Laris and Zhaban. So
yeah. Okay, Son, you had your prediction about Picard's DNA being used and that activated his Irumodic syndrome or whatever the disease is.
We've not heard about since that episode. Yeah.
Yes, and we'll certainly hear something more about that. At this point, I have it still listed as out of left field, but not definitively SmackDown. Next is Maddox created a failsafe activation for Dodge and Soji. That was your son, and I think we discovered that is actually true. So it will be listed that way. It has been anti-SmackDown. It has been smacked up. So congratulations, son, on that prediction having been proven true. Now we go to one on the other end of the scale. This one from Shawn, that Juliana is still around, and it is still as not as much utter speculation as it was 3 weeks ago. Sorry, Shawn. Justin, are you still sticking? I might have. I think I have it as listed as speculation, no evidence.
I kind of said it was a possibility. I was never committed to that.
Good, because it's ludicrous. Okay, next is Justin's peculiar hanging on to the idea that Q is somehow involved. You still sticking with this one, Justin?
with the aerobatic syndrome, I think we might show up, maybe at the very end, just as a kind of like, yeah, see what you did here, Picard.
The way you've been phrasing it though is that this is somehow part of the ongoing judgment of humanity thing, and I don't think that has any place in this show. But I will tell you
today that elaborated on that too, saying the end of season 1 is going to be like the end of Tapestry, where Q pulls him in and says, "So, how'd you think of that?" "Oh, hell no, we're gonna go change that." Season 2.
Yeah, no, that's not this show. However, I will say, because I do give consideration to I don't completely dismiss your theories, Justin. I had a conversation with someone on Facebook today in which they, showed the screenshot of the 5 queens from the that poker game in the premiere between Picard and Data. And, I thought of it more in terms of queens rather than Qs, but there may be something there.
That was what I thought about it, was because, why would they drop such a big hint? Borg Queen would be too obvious.
And Q isn't?
Q's
literally the name.
Well, they would think it would be Queen, either Q or Queen.
Well, here's the thing, and maybe it's both. Here's the thing that I've been thinking about, and that is that there is a circumstance in which I would accept them having Q appear on this, and that was if they reimagine Q, like if they come up with a completely different way of presenting him and his agenda, their agenda, whatever, that subverts the frankly silly and campy way we've come to think of Q. And if they did that, it was what?
It was Quark all along.
That would actually make a bit of sense.
Well, see, that's what I'm kind of thinking. It's not.
Well, now you are, of course.
Well, no,
with the journey
maybe another Q.
With the journey that Q made throughout TNG and then Voyager, it would make sense that he'd come back with kind of a different perspective on looking at humanity.
Yeah.
Maybe, but it would have to be a very completely different way of portraying him, and a literally different agenda for whatever reason. But the idea of the omnipotent creature that likes playing around with humanity and with Picard specifically, I just don't think has any place in the themes that this show's been working so hard.
Yeah, but they can bring him back. They would bring him back different, just because look at everything else they've changed in this show. They've changed it all.
I don't think that the 5 queens means 5 Qs or the Q, so much as it probably is a blatant hint to 5 questions.
Maybe, and I find that actually an intriguing possibility as well. Now, if there had been 8, then I would have been, really happy. But we'll have to keep looking for 8s now in what we see from here on out.
8 by 8.
Okay.
The Council.
So
of 8?
I'm keeping the conclave of 8. I'm keeping this as utter speculation, Justin, but keeping it on the board. I have, however, removed the Traveler completely as Fanwank, unless anyone has any objection for keeping it. You can make any argument for keeping it on.
The only way we would do that if we know if Will Wheaton's on an episode or not.
He's not.
Whatever. Anyway. Okay, so now is my prediction, which we're seeing more and more discussion of online, and that's that ancient Romulans created the Borg, or played some part in creating the Borg.
People are so mad about this.
What's that?
People are so mad about this.
There are people who are really angry about it. Charles Baxter is like, if they do that, I'll stop watching this show. I don't understand. Then he doesn't explain why. Like, what? Why is it so horrible?
Exactly. And a lot of people are doing that too, because nobody wants to explain why. Why is that such a bad idea? It's like, well, what's the better idea that you have?
Particularly
because the Borg are better.
I think it should be the Q.
Because the Borg are more effective and more frightening as a mystery. That's the way I see it.
But the mystery would be about how
by
they
trying
came to
constantly link these phenomena that are huge and indescribable and beyond comprehension as somehow linked to this tiny little quarter of the galaxy constantly. Everything in Star Trek revolves or is focused on the Alpha Quadrant. Everything seems to have been originated in the Alpha Quadrant. How many different copies of Earth are
Romulans
there
aren't
in the
Alpha
galaxy?
Remember, they actually did a episode of TOS where they come across a copy of Earth.
They've done this.
There were 6 different copies of Earth.
Right, exactly.
Yeah. Let's not forget Voyager, that the Voth are the
thank you.
The
Dinosaurs from
the
Earth.
47s, the Klingon generation ship, Friendship 1, the Mars probe.
Yeah, except they're not from the Alpha Quadrant. So while you make a great argument about the Alpha Quadrant,
that's the reason that I have a hard time describing this, and why trying to make that connection would irritate me, because it's yet another example of these things that somehow that are out in the greater galaxy somehow having a tie or an origin in this little tiny corner where everything is taking place.
First of all, it's not the corner where it's taking place. It's in a different corner. And they had to come from somewhere, and why not the Romulans? It makes perfect sense.
Ross, that your argument is great, but as far as it's rationally thought out, but that's not the argument that's being made. The argument that's being made is, it came from Voyager because I read it in a book.
Yeah, that's
the argument that's out there. Just like that, because they all look like this when they pose.
I'm also still not making the connection between the Borg and artificial life, because the Borg aren't artificial.
Except, dude, we just found out in this episode that there is, because of Maddox and Bjayzl and
there's
the Borg
a tie
parts
to the ban on the artifact.
But they're also tied in terms of, there wouldn't be a ban between the two of them if there weren't some kind of a link, either technologically or whatever. But they demonstrated that there's an actual link between these two things that could conceivably be separate. They're not separate, and Bruce Maddox is at the center of that. So it's there, and we don't know the technology well enough to know how, but it's definitely there. I mean, the show is making the case that it's there.
The one thing I might bring forward that might kind of contradict this theory is that in the show, Hugh says that the Romulans have a very specific view of the XBs as property to be exploited and a threat to be shelved. And if they're a property to be exploited, if they have this distinct hatred of artificial life because they potentially created the Romulans, why are they exploiting? I mean, not because they created the Borg, not the Romulans. I messed up my wording there. My question is, why would they be exploiting the very things that they fear?
Because they don't know why.
They don't know. It's only the Jacques Vache that know
why.
this.
This is kind of established here that this hatred goes back far back, and nobody really knows why they do. They just hate them, and so it's not. There's no real connection that we know that we created them. If they did create them, okay, there's no real connection. They don't know that. They just know that they need the parts to make that sweet cash, because it's basically it's Fred Sanford's lot on that board is what that comes down to.
And you're assuming that technology is being used to create artificial life, when in fact it may not be used for that at all. It may be used to enhance existing kinds of systems, control systems, command systems, whatever.
I'm going to kind of blow this theory just a little bit, where I'm thinking, yes, the Romulans were around at the creation of the Borg, but they weren't directly responsible, but an indirect action on their part caused it to happen.
Well, that's Skynet. I mean, so yeah.
I think that's possible. I mean, that's.
And I mean, that's a better theory than them creating it because they're not that technical.
I don't. Well, I mean, I think that's kind of like where we've been going with this is that it wasn't intentional that they created.
It wasn't intentional, and that they didn't create them. They didn't create them as we know them now.
Right.
They created what they started out and then became later.
Something so like an AI like control or something like that, and just got out of hand.
Yeah, exactly. They tried to enhance themselves, and shit ran amok.
I like Ross's argument. I agree with Ross's argument. It would deflate the Borg to turn the Borg into genies.
I don't think that's what it's doing, but
ultimate cosmic power, itty bitty living space.
What do you need?
But I don't think that's what they're portrayed as here, and I don't think it trivializes them to know that how they. I mean, it's like the Cylons. We know where they came from. It doesn't make them somehow less.
The only thing that's
villainous.
The only thing that's ever trivialized the Borg is 7 years of Voyager. That's what trivialized the Borg.
Or Enterprise.
Enterprise had one episode with the Borg. I don't know how that trivialized it.
And that was more of a first contact sequel.
Voyager simply they took everything that was scary about the Borg away from them over 7 series.
They beamed a photon torpedo onto a Borg spear and blew it up. I mean,
it's not just that. It's not just that. They showed they could kick their ass. Voyager could kick the Borg's ass at every turn. I mean, it became, and even the last episode of the series is Voyager kicking the Borg's ass. I mean,
with help from the future. Ridiculous.
With help from the future, I agree.
Well, of course, exactly. Because I know. Because 20 years in the future would have made that difference.
It's a surefire path to promotion into an admiral.
Yeah, exactly. Behind a desk. So, my point is that I don't think you could trivialize the Borg any more than Voyager already did. And not for nothing, I was not opposed. I've never been opposed to this notion of they're in the Delta Quadrant. There's no way they were not going to encounter the Borg. But the way that they just abused it from season 4 on, it was just ridiculous. It took,
well, this is not, however, a show about Voyager. So we're going to move on.
I will say something about
we're moving on, folks. We're moving on.
Relevance.
All right, so now I'm going to skip the artifact ones because we didn't see the artifact in this episode, so we'll revisit those next week. But we can go to a prediction of Ross's, which I think has now been smacked up, and that is his prediction that Maddox is not alone, working with others who have an agenda that Daj and Soji are searching for. Its status now gone from increasingly possible to true.
Confirmed.
Confirmed. So good job to you on that, Ross. Justin, are you still sticking with the Dr. Lewis Zimmerman working with Maddox thing?
I would not be surprised if we do not see Zimmerman show up at some point in time, and that he is well aware of what's going on. I think it's highly likely.
I think it is as ludicrous as when you. I think it's as ludicrous as when you first proposed it, but officially I've it listed as not opposed. So I agree with that. I'm not opposed to it, even though I think it's ludicrous.
I think it's crazy, but hey, why
not? Let's see. Shawn, your prediction gets definitively smacked down this week. That Ralphie seeks vindication via Maddox on Freehold. We discover, in fact, she was only there to see her son. So sorry for that, Shawn. SmackDown. Bring down the banhammer, please. Ross, and we will move to Sons. And I like this one, even though it's total fanwank. Commodore O's final words will be her name. I think that would be lovely. So no more evidence on that one, but we still love that one. Now we can also create another one that has been smacked up and confirmed in that, and Son, that is your prediction that 7 is one of the Fenris Rangers. That has been shown to be true.
Well, I would argue that was confirmed before the episode. There was some promotional material that had that describe Seven
ahead
with
of
the Fenris
ahead
Rangers.
of this episode or ahead of the episode before?
Ahead of the show.
Yes, ahead of the
Yeah,
episode.
as part
Which
of the show
episodes?
promotes.
Or
No, the
by-
promotion.
Like I saw this promotional material floated around the time of episode 1. So
Well, had you seen those?
yeah.
I mean, son, had you seen that
Oh.
promotional material?
I've only seen the screenshots of Seven. I didn't see any promotional material.
Yeah, I didn't see anything either. So I still give her the win because she didn't know about those promotional materials.
Fair
Okay,
point.
now we go to the opposite of that, where Sun thinks that somehow these people are Iconians that are involved, which I think is ridiculous. And because, I'm sorry, this is not Star Trek Online. You can go play that over there. That's not this show.
I'm
are
glad
you still
it's
gonna
not
stick
Star
with
Trek
that one,
Online.
son?
Look, the way I look at it is, it could be any number of things. It doesn't necessarily have to be the Borg. My counter to the Borg argument was that it could be the demons of air and darkness. That the Romulans are somehow involved with what has gone on with the something with the Iconians.
That's not canon, so why would it show up here? I mean, I just don't.
Except that it is canon that the Demons of Air and Darkness was a Romulan myth of legend.
And Iconia is within Romulan space.
I think it's a stretch. We'll keep it
No
on the
more
board.
of a stretch than some of these.
Well, there's some that are also
More than
listed
a
as fan
stretch
and
and,
utter speculation.
Dr. Girardi being a sleeper agent?
No, I think there's a lot more possibility for that being the case than this one, because we literally have no evidence of this within the show, whereas we have plenty of evidence of Dr. Girardi in previous episodes. So I don't think we can equate them. We'll keep it on the board, however, and we'll keep monitoring it. Finally, Travis, who is convinced that we will be seeing Cloaked Federation starships. Sun also thinks that Rios's original starship was a Pegasus-type Cloaked Federation vessel. I have this listed as fanwank, but how much do you guys want to stick by this, Sun and Travis?
Well, if I can, part of this is already starting to make part of this week was actually kind of confirmed with me, because my basis for this little benign theory of mine was that with the fall of Romulus, treaties like the Treaty of Algeron would be obsolete.
Sure.
And the Treaty of Algeron established the Romulan neutral zone, which we now have solid concrete evidence that it is no longer there, which makes me feel like, Starfleet might start to dabble with this technology. And I mean, Starfleet has an agenda right now to stop Picard from doing whatever he wants to do. Clancy told hey, keep Picard from, messing with whatever we're doing here or whatever's going on. They don't want Picard going on this little
well, let's be clear here. Clancy and O have two very different agendas.
Yeah.
Clancy just doesn't want Picard destabilizing the situation, because as we've seen demonstrated, his very presence is destabilizing. So that's what Clancy is concerned about. O has a very different agenda. Which is about, keeping secret things that they want to be kept secret, and he's clearly a threat to that. So I wouldn't put them on the same level. But continue with your.
I agree with Travis, but from the perspective of real world scenario. As much as people have compared Star Trek V to the fall of the Soviet Union, we're kind of seeing
six.
Okay, yeah, 6 to the fall of the Soviet Union. We're kind of seeing the same thing here with the destruction of Romulus, the obliteration of the neutral zone as a neutral zone, and here is what's left of the Romulans. Why wouldn't Starfleet hire Romulan cloaking scientists on the dirt cheap?
I'm not here's my opinion on this. It's not that this is an infeasible theory. I just don't think it's what this show is about. That's why.
Well, I mean,
if this were
I'm not trying to say that
show,
this should be
if
what
this
the
were a
show
show
is
about
about.
Starfleet, then I'd say yes, this makes a lot of sense. I could see it happening, etc. But that's not what this show is about.
No, but it's not what it's about. But I think we just might see if we see Starfleet show up at all, they're going to be using a ship with a cloak.
It would be really cool to see Admiral Clancy show up on a cloaked Enterprise E to rescue the La Serena out of a really rough spot.
I actually added that from last week's show to the spreadsheet.
It's
Ross,
complete
Enterprise E or Enterprise S.
Well, yeah, you're repeating yourself. You said the same thing last week. Either way, it is fan wank and utter speculation. We're leaving it on the board just because it would blow my mind. It would blow my mind. So I don't think it's going to happen.
Now here's the other thing, though. This was a plot hole, I guess, maybe not, from last week, at least for me, is that they're fighting the La Serena is fighting the cloaked bird of prey that decloaks the fight, and then suddenly the Fenris Ranger ship shows up with 7. As in, there was no sensor warning that there was another ship coming in. It just was suddenly there.
No proximity alert.
Now, granted, it's not a Federation ship, so that's the first thing. But still, there's that question there.
I don't think you can count that as a plot hole. There's too many reasons why it's perfectly plausible. For one thing, did the old bird of prey actually decloak? I thought it just appeared.
It did. It didn't. It did not cloak. It did not cloak.
Yeah, there was no cloaking.
I remember that specifically.
Yeah, there was no cloaking.
It just came out. It just swooped in. It was. They were able to detect it out as it scans.
Remember though, in that episode, they're in the La Serena, and Rafi says that they have the bird of prey at the edge of their sensor range.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, wouldn't that same type of alert have gone off if there was another ship coming into the fight?
Not if it was hiding somewhere.
It's a much smaller ship.
And it could have been hiding somewhere.
Yeah, it could have been hiding. You have to remember, this is basically Las Vegas. There's all kinds of traffic coming through. A bird of prey is a very distinctive kind of traffic. So yes, that's something that would pop up. But this is a very small vessel.
Las Vegas. You're talking about Vashti. This was over Vashti.
I'm talking metaphorically, you guys. It's like Las Vegas. People come to this thing.
No, Vashti was the planet with the monsters.
The planet for week before the
Oh wait, planet. Right. That's a different. Yes. I'm sorry. You're correct. That's right, Vashti. Okay. All right. Yeah. No, that's right. But even so, that doesn't change. It doesn't change the fact that it's a very. You can detect this ship. I mean, it's a well-known ship. And even if they were using an old cloak, that's something that it's 200 years old. So it's not something that you could expect would work anymore. I mean, would fool sensors.
Work well. I mean, look at what happened with the old Klingon cloak on Voyager. They were able to detect it like that. So yeah, obviously, the older the ship is, the worse cloak ain't going to be able to hold up.
Yeah, definitely. It's a kind of technology that you need to keep upgrading because sensors are always doing a better and better job of detecting it. So, okay, so fair enough. So any new predictions to add to the spreadsheet? This is your chance, folks.
But Jazel lives.
Okay, Shawn, but Jazel lives.
He's wrong.
I
actually came up with a cute Elnor prediction, but I don't think it'll. If it ever does come true, it won't happen this season or next season.
What is that, Travis?
Elnor will be the first Romulan in Starfleet.
Full-blooded Romulan.
That's right.
I would like to say this is the reason I agree with Shawn. Well, shit, I just had it. Damn it.
Well, while you're doing that, I'm just going to make a quick comment to Travis, which is I've been super entertained by your fidget spinner, so thank you.
I can't.
I was going to say something
sometimes.
too. I'm like, yeah, thanks for the fidget spinner. It's really oddly satisfying.
It really,
Well,
can't stop
I'm
looking
glad
at it.
it isn't annoying anyone.
Okay,
No, it's not annoying.
I got it.
Go
back.
ahead.
Okay.
Go ahead.
The reason it is possible that she lives is because, like we've all said, she's kind of this predatory person. She may have had the interest in Seven of Nine because of the Borg technology, which led to the E-chip situation and to the revenge. But now she has something else to pique her interest as a prey and predator situation, and that would be going after Picard. Because not only did Picard bring her Seven of Nine, Picard also duped her. Picard slighted her.
I don't know about that. I don't think.
But he doesn't have anything to offer her.
Right. Yeah. I don't think she's not in it for revenge.
Yeah, she's in. It's purely business for her.
Otherwise, she wouldn't have made the deal Maddox for her life. She'd have hit the panic button and called the cavalry.
Yeah. It would have been almost immediate instead of the way it was played out. But I like to throw in my new theory.
Go ahead, Justin.
My melt coming into play for some portion of Girardi. We don't know exactly what yet, but we know this from the previews. And we don't know if it would cause her to kill Maddox. If what she was shown was somehow coerced her and she gets deprogrammed later on. But my meld...
I don't think it coerced her. I think it convinced her. She's doing this of her own free will, even though she hates having to do so.
She wouldn't have been so distraught otherwise.
Yeah.
True. But she was almost fighting it. And you almost see her mind just kind of fighting
well,
because her
no,
eyes
I mean, she's
twitching.
not fighting it. She just hates that she's doing it. Hates that she thinks she has to do it. That's not the same thing as fighting it. It's hating the fact that she's doing it.
Yeah, it's almost like though something's clicking inside of her head, and it's just, I don't know, it's almost like something.
The only click was when she heard him say to Picard Soji's name and where she was. That's when you saw her body literally like sort of kick into place. But I think that's just because that's the information she knew she needed to get. And now that she'd gotten it, she needed to get rid of Maddox for whatever reasons that they've shown her. But I really feel like she's not being duped. She's doing this because they showed her something that convinced her that it's something she needs to do, which is why it's a tragedy, really.
I think they just convinced her through a mind meld because, I mean, it's been shown before.
Why does it always have to be a mind meld with you? Why can't
Why not?
Just be...
Melding isn't brainwashing.
Because it's a deus ex machina. It's like there's no dynamic, there's no dramatic tension if you can just wave your fingers over somebody and poof, you're going to do what I tell you to do. That's ridiculous.
A mind meld is a bond,
it's much
not a coercion.
Except in Enterprise, they showed that otherwise that they could be used as coercion.
Yeah, it can be used as a means of violence, but it's not something that you can compel someone else to do.
Coerce people through violence. I mean, it's not just any one thing. You know, it depends on who's doing it and why. So I don't think you can characterize it totally as one way or the other.
This was a deliberate act by Girardi, and she was broken up and heartbroken by the whole thing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
it makes it much more
powerful,
I think it's much more personal, much more emotional that way.
Yeah, I agree with you totally.
What do you guys think of the Romulans hitting the panic button on the artifact to make every zone no longer a green zone?
That would be something. That would certainly be a clench panic moment.
Mm-hmm.
I also think that after he gets caught, he's going to be thrown into the gray zone without the badge.
Who?
Picard.
Okay.
I think they're going to save it for the end of the episode, and it's going to be a cliffhanger whenever it happens.
I think we're going to see something like what you're predicting, son, on that one. Not quite sure what, but
yeah.
But I hope it has something to do with that Rubik's Cube.
Yeah, my thought on this is that when everything starts to go wrong on the cube, somebody literally just hits a panic button for the drones that are activated to start assimilating everything so they can start all over again.
Maybe. I mean, they've certainly set that up as a possibility. So at some point, something like that needs to happen, or they wouldn't have, it's Chekhov's gun.
I have a feeling
now it's Chekhov's drone.
Now, you thought, Carlos, that was Locutus that we've seen. So we got to mark that down. Locutus showing up.
Mystery Cube, Rubik's Cube, Borg Cube.
Is that an actual prediction, though? Because mine wasn't a prediction. It was just an observation on what I thought I saw in the
yes, it's
preview.
A prediction. Yes, it is a prediction. Because
you said Locutus.
You seem to believe it is Locutus.
I know. I agree with you. I looked at it carefully and I said, I hope it's not true. So it wasn't a prediction. It was just it was a mistake on my part to what I thought I saw in that preview.
I really hope that Locutus is not involved in this. It would be worse than the whole Q idea.
Of all the things you're predicting, that's what you hope doesn't show.
Well, it would be too. Locutus would be. I mean, come on, seriously.
It makes more sense for Locutus to show up than it does Q.
Yeah,
it would make more sense for Q to show up because Picard's dying.
There's the Romulan extra question, though.
Yeah.
How many clones of Picard did they make? And
God!
And did they?
Wait
a minute!
Really?
Did they try to get rid of the Picard clone by putting it on the ship that gets assimilated?
Smack it down.
That was long after they'd abandoned that whole thing. So no.
Are you sure it was abandoned? We don't know.
The movie tells us.
Yeah, it was a bad decision in the first place in making Nemesis. They're not going to compound it by doing it again. Okay.
Kate's being
final
really
chance.
Quiet.
Yeah. Well, Kate, you had your answer to when I asked about predictions was, and I quote, "I never make predictions about shows I enjoy." Is that still true?
I still enjoy Picard, so I'm still not making predictions.
Okay, so that's a good sign. You're
like
our canary in the coal mine.
Yes.
Okay, any last predictions before we sign off for the night?
It will end with a cliffhanger, and that's when we're going to see Picard being captured. It's going to cut to black.
Well, of course, it's going to end with a cliffhanger. They always do.
I have a prediction that Rafi's going to throw herself back into her drugs because of the incident with her son, and the only thing that's going to bring her out of it is the eventual death of her son and the Romulan wife.
What?
Ooh.
That's dark. I'm sleepy.
That is dark, but
they went dark. I mean, they killed Icheb within the first 5 minutes of this episode, so I mean, it's not out of the realm of possibility. Just out of the realm of possibility.
Beheaded a dude, so I mean, dark is a thing.
It's dark, but I'm not going to say it's not impossible. I think it's something like that could clearly happen. So I'm not going to write that one off.
I definitely got to agree with the drug use because, I mean, that's a habitual user will fall back on it when stressful times. She just lost her family that she was fighting to stay sober for. So she will probably get a kick in the pants at Picard by some point.
So here's another question.
We'll see.
How far back are we going in next week's flashback?
Well, we've been going back less and less time. So it was 14 years. Now we're at 13 years. So it'll be at least 13 years and maybe sooner.
Unless they throw us for a loop and take us back to Wolf 359.
They won't. That'd be ridiculous.
They might.
Each one has been thematic, and since we're going to a Borg cube, you know.
Maybe we'll see what caused the Borg cube to get stranded. You know,
we're more likely to see that than what you're predicting.
I think that.
Then I withdraw.
Here's a prediction. We're going to find out exactly what caused that disaster in the season finale. That's my prediction.
Okay, wait. Let me write that down.
They're going to flash back to exactly how that cube got there to begin with.
The submatrix collapse. I predict that next week Shawn will not be wearing.
Shawn already took his pants off.
Oh, there you go, folks. America
You cheated.
America is thrilled.
Shawn is pantless. Repeat.
We got thigh.
All right.
Are they
that winds
thunder
us up.
thighs?
That winds us up for this week, folks. Thank you for joining us for this episode of Make It So, the Real Super Geeks Star Trek Picard after show. We will be back next week to review the next episode, which is The Impossible Box, in which we get some flashbacks to when Daj and or Soji were little girls, or somebody was a little girl who discovers their daddy.
Hellraiser.
So we'll see what happens there. So far we've seen the little girl coming across her father in the laboratory or whatever it is, and then we've also seen, what was the other preview we've seen? Them being on the cube, the Rubik's Cube, and I guess that's it. So,
and a mind
anything
meld.
else, you guys? We don't know that's happening in this episode. We don't know that's happening in this episode.
I'm good. I'm tired though.
Okay.
Yeah.
Let's wrap it up, folks. Thank you very much, Ross. Thanks for getting us on live. And Travis, thank you for joining us as a guest. Kate, thank you for joining us as a guest.
Always happy.
And we'll see you again soon. Thanks, everyone.
Bye-bye.